Caseus, Jedi Exile. Chapter 5. Caseus very gently cupped his hands, full of soft, fresh soil, and carefully planted the last of the Zakava seeds as the sun beat down on his back and neck. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he stood, cracking his back, and looked over his hard work and smiled. There we go. Should be a good harvest. Grabbing his tools and supplies, he walked over to the barn and admired the rich dark green color and shiny brass handles of the doors. It reminded him of R3. Walking inside, he set his tools down and grabbed the bag of animal feed and walked over to the birds who rushed over to the gate, clucking and chirping in anticipation. All right, easy there. Plenty to go around. Jezza, you be sure to share. Don't want you hogging the food again. Caseus spread the seeds in the pen as the birds began to eat. Stepping around them, he walked over to their nests and grabbed a few of the newly laid eggs, packing them carefully into a basket before heading over to the swine pen. Grabbing the bucket of slop, he filled their trough and went inside, setting the eggs down on the table and sitting down to enjoy a tall glass of water. Looking around the house, he scratched his beard and sighed. Caseus never once thought that this is where he would be at this point in his life. As a Padawan, he dreamed he would be a master by this age, training a student of his own. Yet here he was, working a small farm in the Outer Rim, with a new life and a new identity. It wasn't all bad. He got along well with Sabo. He didn't have to worry about food. In fact, he probably ate a little more than he needed to. Above all else, however, aside from the occasional poacher or wild animal trying to break into the pens for an easy meal, it was quiet, peaceful. The nightmares and dreams he once suffered from were not as frequent, though every so often he would wake up in a cold sweat after a particularly nasty one. One thing that hadn't changed, however, in all these years. He missed Sarah. More than anything. Sabo had been right. Time helped, but the pain would never truly leave. A knock came at the door as Caseus stood and walked over, opening the door to see a young man with a bag over his shoulder. Hey, Seth. Hiya, Corbin. Got the eggs? Sure do. You got the flour? The young man held up a bag of flour. Right here. Caseus walked over to the table and grabbed the eggs, handing them over in exchange for the flour. See you in 2 weeks. All right. Stay out of trouble, Seth. Seth waved goodbye and made his way down the road. As he sat back down, he heard a noise outside by the barn. Probably some animal trying to get in. Walking outside with Sabo's rifle over his shoulder, he saw a young girl with dark red hair peeking through the window of the barn. Can I help you? The girl turned in shock and fell off the box she was standing on as Caseus ran over and helped her up. Easy. You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
What are you doing out here?
My uncle's been kinda sick. I heard my mom talk about how Sabo might have some medicine for his stomach.
Well, Sabo won't be back until tomorrow. I'll see what I've got, though. Come with me. The girl followed him into the barn as she looked around.
So how do you know Sabo?
I work for him. I help him keep the farm up and running. What about you?
Mom says he's a friend. She's keeping an eye on Uncle while I grab the stuff.
You come from town? The girl stayed quiet.
I'm not supposed to talk to anyone except Sabo.
Caseus shrugged and looked in the cupboard for herbs to help settle the stomach as the girl walked over to the coat rack and saw Master Takai's cloak hanging up.
This is pretty.
Please don't touch that. It's very important to me.
Why?
I thought you weren't supposed to talk to strangers. Just have a seat. I'll find you what you need. The girl huffed and sat down, pulling something from her pocket. Caseus finally found a jar of garden herbs and turned around, seeing the girl holding a small blue cube in her hand. It was Liara. In shock, Caseus dropped the jar, which shattered.
Are you okay?
Caseus hurriedly picked up the broken glass and put the herbs in a small bag. Yeah, just bit clumsy sometimes.
You should be more careful.
Caseus gave the girl an annoyed look and handed her the bag. Here, take them and get back to your speeder. Tell the driver to take you home.
Speeder?
Caseus looked up in surprise. You walked here?
Yeah, it's not that far.
It's 6 miles.
So?
Caseus huffed in annoyance. It was starting to get dark. He couldn't let her go alone. Look, get in my speeder. I'll take you home.
Mom says I shouldn't go anywhere with strangers.
Well, your mom also shouldn't let you wander out here alone either. Look, if you want to walk home, fine. No skin off my nose.
Well, you've got an ugly nose anyway.
Caseus reeled back in surprise as Liara took the bag and walked outside. I have an ugly nose? Caseus rolled his eyes and cleaned up the rest of the glass before stepping outside to light the lanterns. As he looked out into the field, he saw Liara running back towards the town and shook his head. After he had finished with the rest of the chores, he heard a speeder outside. Sabo wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow. Carefully, he grabbed the rifle and went to the door, as he heard a knock. Opening it, he saw Kala at the door and Liara in the speeder looking down.
I need to talk to you.
Caseus put the rifle down and moved so she could come inside.
Liara, you stay there and don't move.
Liara looked over and nodded as Kala shut the door.
What was she doing out here with you?
She said her uncle was sick and needed medicine.
Her uncle is just fine.
Caseus raised an eyebrow. So why did she come all the way out here then?
That's what I want to know. Did you tell her anything?
No, I didn't. She doesn't know anything.
Nothing at all?
Kala, the last thing I want to do is put you or your family in danger. Why would I tell Liara anything about me?
Keep it that way. If she comes out here again, call me. Sabo has my contact signal. Don't talk to her. Don't interact with her. Don't do anything.
Why are you so distrustful of me?
You know exactly why, Caseus. If word gets out that there's a Jedi in Dantooine, none of us are safe.
They'd be looking for me. Why would they come after you unless... Kala's eyes shifted from anger to worry. Then, Caseus started putting the pieces together. She has it, doesn't she? The Force.
You don't know what you're talking about.
That's why she came out. People like us are drawn to each other.
She is not like you. She isn't one of your kind, and she never will be. Not as long as I'm around.
Kala, if you repress it...
Repress? Repress? I'm keeping her safe. Safe from the Empire, and safe from you. I don't want you teaching her any of your Jedi nonsense or putting any wild fantasies into her head.
Well, you don't have to worry about that. I left that life a long time ago.
Good. Keep it that way. If you get caught, that's one thing. But if something happens to her, if anything happens to her, I'll know who was responsible for drawing attention to her.
Caseus narrowed his eyes and stared at her. You can't hide her abilities forever. At some point they'll manifest on their own. One way or another. Without proper training and control, she'll never be safe. Kala glared at Caseus with a mother's scornful stare.
How safe are you, Caseus? What will you do if the Empire shows up?
Caseus got closer and returned the dreadful gaze. Is that a threat?
Kala, call it what you want. Stay away.
Caseus looked at the doorway. Fine. I just hope you know what you're doing. Kala scoffed and went out the door, hopping into her speeder as she sped off with Liara, leaving Caseus on the front step. She wouldn't sell him out. Would she? No. Then they'd start looking for other Force-sensitive beings on Dantooine. And they'd find her too. The next day was the same routine as Caseus completed his work, finished his chores, and got things ready for Sabo's return. Walking over to the barn to put away his tools, Caseus looked over to the corner of the room and slowly walked to the small locked box hidden beneath a stack of old rags and empty oil cans. Carefully, he picked it up and looked at it. Inside this box was his old life. A dangerous life. One he left behind, but that still managed to creep its way into his new existence. He felt naked without it for so long. The smart thing to do would be to leave it where it was and never touch it again. The Jedi thing to do would be to take up his weapon once more and do whatever he could to keep that girl safe. But who would keep him safe?
Caseus?
Caseus turned around and saw Sabo holding a crate of tools and supplies. Sabo, you're home early? Sabo walked over inquisitively.
I got an early start. What are you doing, boy?
Caseus held the box in his hands and stared at it, as Sabo gently took it and set it back down.
Let it be, son. Let it be.
Caseus nodded and walked inside with Sabo. That evening, he sat down at the table poking at his food.
What's on your mind?
Huh? It's nothing.
I don't have to be a Jedi to know something is wrong with you, son.
Caseus sighed. Yesterday, Liara came by.
Liara? What was she doing out here?
She said she needed medicine for her uncle. Turns out he was fine. Kala showed up. Found out she was over here.
Can't imagine she was too pleased.
No, she was elated, all sunshine and rainbows. She threatened me, Sabo. Said that if anything like that happened again, she'd have the Empire here.
She's bluffing, Caseus.
Well, it was a hell of a bluff. Sabo, I think Liara is like me. Sabo stared at Caseus.
How so?
I think she has the Force.
If she does, it's all the more reason for you to keep your distance. She wouldn't be safe hanging out around you.
I'm just thinking. A child with the Force needs to learn how to control it. Otherwise, it could lead to trouble.
Control it? You're not seriously considering trying to teach her anything, are you?
No, I just...
Caseus, the time of the Jedi is over. We've been over this. Teaching her will only lead to trouble.
I know, but...
No. No buts. You have to respect Kala's decision. Liara is her daughter. If she wants her as far away from that life as possible, you have to respect her wishes. You've got a good life here, Caseus. Don't risk losing it over the past.
Caseus sighed and nodded slowly. You're right. I just have to let it be.
It's for the best, Caseus.
I hope so. Caseus didn't sleep well that night. As he lay in his bed, back in town, Liara was arguing with Kala.
He didn't seem bad. I told you no. Stay away from that man. But why? He was nice. You don't know him, Liara. He's trouble. I don't want you getting hurt. What did he do that was so bad? He's hurt people. If you get involved with him, he could hurt you too. Leave him alone and don't go near him. Is that understood?
Liara huffed at her mother and stormed off to her room. Kala sat as her brother entered. Don't you think you're being a little too protective?
You know what the Empire would do to her, Dogan. It's my job to keep her safe.
I know, but is that what her father would want?
Her father is dead because of who he was. I won't let that happen to her.
Upstairs in her room, Liara stared out her window, unaware that Caseus was doing the same from his room.